I'm Kris Barras, and this is the Blues Podcast.
Hey Chris, how you doing, man? Welcome to the Blues Podcast. Nice to have you here on the sofa.
Yes, thanks for having me.
It's comfy, isn't it?
Yes, very good.
Yeah. Later on, I'm going to get you to lie down with your head on my lap, and we can really get into the grit of everything. But why don't we just start off with the early days, like the real early days? You grew up in the southwest of England, right?
Yeah.
How did that work out for you?
I mean, it was. I think it's a pretty good place to grow up. You know, spent a lot of time at the beach and things like that. And you know, when the sun's shining, it's a beautiful place.
Is that very often?
Well, yeah. But you know, it's pretty tough when you're a budding musician trying to make it. It's really good for like function bands and stuff like that because there's a lot of weddings down in the southwest. But for original music, there's like, fuck all is crap.
Yeah.
I found it really, really, really tough. There was no kind of like direction. And once I left like school, sixth form and stuff, and you know, I had these dreams of becoming a rock star. There was just no clear like path, right. You know.
Was it a very definite thing early on that you wanted to be doing your own stuff and you know making your own music and your own identity, your own sound, or did you start off with a few covers at all? Or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, covers was like the main thing. I look back now and I was a pretty shit songwriter. You know, the stuff I was doing when I was that age was dire. The cover stuff was cool. Like I was in a band, I was about 16, 17. We started gigging around the pubs and stuff. We used to play like 3-4 nights a week. There was a really good scene at the time. And we were earning good money, and you know, I started doing some originals, putting them in, and it was okay, but like I said, it was quite weak. I was much more about like, at that time, more about like the performing. I loved performing. I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be on the big stage. I was very naive, didn't realise like necessarily what it took to be there, and like I said, I just didn't have the writing capabilities, you know.
What do you think put that idea in your mind in the first place of like having this big idea of being a rock star? I mean, where did that come from, do you think?
Well, I mean, I started playing when I was like 5-6 years old, and my dad was in the cover bands and used to go and watch them and stuff. And I went to watch Thunder when I was 9 or 10. Yeah, that was my first big gig that I went to. They came down to Torquay. Not many bands do. Played in like the local like exhibition centre down on the seafront, and that was like the first. I can still remember it now. I still remember the gig. I was the only kid there, and that was the first time that I'd seen something like that, and I was like, wow, like this is what I want to do.
Right.
And I was never under like any illusions. Like, I always knew that it would be like a tall order. I always knew that the chances of me becoming a rock star were like slim to none. I was never like, oh, I'm going to be a superstar, rock star, I'm going to be touring the world, I'm going to be doing this. I never ever thought like that when I was younger. I'd always wanted it, but I never actually thought that I'd be able to, you know, I never thought I'd get to this level, let alone anything higher.
Right, yeah. So when you first started out writing songs and all that, what sort of style were you writing? Was it sort of rock kind of stuff, or were you into the blues stuff then? And
yeah, I mean, when it was a bit more just like poppy, rocky. There's always like blues elements in there because that's what I grew up listening to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot more like poppy, rocky. Do you know what? It was kind of like a mishmash. Like I said, like I had no idea who I was as an artist. I had no real direction. I'd just write some riffs and write a song, and the lyrics would all be just cliched crap, and you know, there wasn't really any like particular sound. It was just like a little bit of everything. At that time, when I was younger, it was only once I come back and I started writing songs like for me, and like more as like an emotional thing, as like a release or something like that.
Like a therapy almost.
Yeah, that's the word I was trying to. Yeah, yes, exactly. You know, so once I stopped like with all the fighting stuff, and I just started writing some songs again, and I just found that I had more substance there. I had more meaning, and what I was doing was kind of a bit more purposeful and a bit more, don't know, like, it sounds a bit lame and again, like, but like almost like I found myself, like, you know, as an artist, like, right, this is me, this is what I do best, and you know, and I didn't have to really think about it. It was just like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what I mean. I think once you start writing that, you know, that kind of that outpour of stuff, that I think that's when people start to listen and actually identify with it.
Yeah.
Because like you say, you can write songs when you're young, and you know, you go through all the cliches, don't you? But, you know, I woke up this morning and my baby was gone, and it's the irony of it is at 16 is you probably haven't had any clue of what that sort of feeling is like anyway. Like, you know, you still live with your mum. It's just more like I woke up at lunchtime and my mum's dad's done me washing, like, you know. It's like that would be a much more realistic song, wouldn't it? But did you do any demos real early on?
Yeah.
Do you still have them? Do you still listen to them?
No. I couldn't. No, I couldn't. Yeah, so we it was a lot harder back then, like, to record and things, you know, like these days everyone's got a laptop with, you know, Logic or
bedroom studio, haven't they? Yeah.
But back then there wasn't. People were like starting to get into it more, you know, people were popping up with their own stuff, but it was still very much a thing, like you had to have money to go to a studio to do it. You know, I'm going back like 18 years or something, you know. So I didn't have much money to get any studio time or do it properly, and we were playing in a bar one night, and there was this guy dancing all night, and he was in like this white, like linen, like suit, and he had a red wine and was like really tanned, and he was dancing around, and we were in like this really rough like pub in Brixham, like absolute shithole, and he came up to me after and was like, look, I'm setting up this music company. It was a bit of everything, like management, just help promote bands, and you know, he's basically just like a massive music fan. He had a little bit of money he did work on like yachts and stuff like that. He still does, actually. I spoke to him the other day, but and you know, gave me his card, and I thought nothing of it. I gave him my card, and about 3 weeks later he rang me up and said, oh, do you remember me? You met me in the bar. I was like, do you have any demos or anything like that? And I was like, nah, I just haven't been able to afford any like studio time. And he's like, right, well, I want to pay for you to go and do a demo CD. I was like, right, okay. And he was like, man, and he did, and we went and did that. And then when we were in the studio doing that, I can't remember, it was like 4 or 5 track EP or something, I don't know. And he was like, do you want to go to the States? I was like 18 years old. I was like, yeah. Because he had a few contacts out there, because he'd spent a lot of time in the States doing bits and bobs, and so he set up this like East Coast tour, and we recorded in Philadelphia. We ended up doing 2 tours and recording an album there, divided between the two. We did like 5 tracks first time, 6 tracks the next time, whatever. And yeah, so you know, I was doing that at like an early age. So yeah, there were CDs, but it just, the thing was, with the covers and stuff we're doing, we had like a great live show, you know. I was a very energetic frontman, and people used to really like lap that up, but the original material wasn't strong enough for it to ever get anywhere, you know. At the time I didn't realise it, I had a lot of people around me saying like, oh, you're going to be a superstar, you know, and you're 18 years old, like, you believe it, you know. I started to think, oh, you know, shit, I'm going to be a rock star. And then things didn't work out, and it didn't go to the next level, and we were all kind of like, well, what do we do next? And then, you know, I just didn't want anything to do with the music industry after that. Do
you remember a sort of point? Do you remember a particular time when you realised the reality hit, and you thought, shit, this is not going to happen, this is actually much harder than I thought? Do you remember that? Yeah. Was there like a moment, or was it just a gradual?
I mean, it was kind of gradual. It just kind of like just fizzled out, and it was like, well, we don't know what to do, like, you know. And you know, looking back now, knowing what I know now, and you know what I've achieved and how I've achieved it, you know, it's blindingly obvious why it didn't work.
It's easy to see it from this side, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a learning experience, but I really became like disappointed, and you know, I I always had it like back of my head, like, oh, I want to, you know, I'd love to give music another go. But I was like, I don't know how to do it, and I don't know, you know, people back, you know, again back then it was always like, well, you got to live in London,
Right.
you know,
yeah,
you have to move to London. And I was like, how do I move to London? Like, I can't afford just to go and live in London. What am I going to do when I'm up there? You know.
Yeah.
And I just quit. I was doing for years. I carried on just doing like cover band stuff and doing weddings, functions, all that stuff, and it's quite, you know, soul destroying. We'd have some good nights, but you know, sometimes just like, you know, you'll always get people go, oh, why don't you go on X Factor, or oh, you're really good, you should be doing bigger gigs.
You should. Why aren't you bigger? You should be bigger. You're so good.
All
it's
that
just
stuff. And
I don't know.
and that's obviously when I went off and I did all the fighting stuff, and I just didn't really write anything. I was writing a lot of instrumental stuff. I got quite into widdly diddly bits and bobs, and it was a bit like fusiony, rock fusiony, little bits like funk jazz elements in there, and I just used to do that just for a bit of fun, but I never recorded any of it properly.
Right, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny, like the turns that we take, and
Absolutely, yeah.
I remember my dad always used to say to me, like, "Oh, really wish you'd give music another go. Like you should be doing that. You were like wasted playing in these bars." I was like, I still remember having a conversation with him. We were in this pub. It's called the Spinning Wheel, and it's like a local live music hub in Torbay. They have like entertainment 7 nights a week, and it's where, you know, all bands in the area want to play.
You heard it here first, kids. All right. Yeah.
And I still remember the conversation. We were there, and maybe we finished the first set, or maybe it was the end of the night. It was something like that. And we'd had a really good gig. There was some quite like magical musical moments. And I remember saying, "Oh, you know, you should wish you could like have a go. Wish you could be doing something like bigger." And I was like, "How do I do it?" And we just looked at each other like no idea, like, you know. And I think when I eventually came back round to it, it's a lot easier. You know, I recorded my first like demo EP album thing. It's like 8 tracks in my own home studio.
Right, yeah.
Did my own videos with like a cheap video camera, and set a Facebook page, got it on Spotify, did all the stuff, and then I can just send a ton of emails out to different promoters, different things, you know. I remember one day I sent out, I can't remember the exact number, it was something like 241 emails in one day, and I think I got 3 replies. And that's a mixture of everything. That's pretty good though, right? I was sending it to anyone and everyone that I could just find. Like I had this big spreadsheet of emails that I just kept collecting for everything from record labels to agencies to festivals to local promoters, venues, and I just blasted it out. Got 3 replies, but every one of them turned into something, and then developed from there.
Right. I mean, so that's quite. It's quite amazing you got any replies, really. You know, in the music industry, usually you send out emails, and it's like nothing. Phone up, nothing. It's like, I think you did really well there. What was the thing, the initial spark that got you back into the music? Because you mean, obviously, you sort of took this sort of break where you weren't really being that creative. What was the thing that really kicked it off again for you?
Well, so I was still gigging in the covers band, and we were playing in the spinner wheel, and there was one night I had a depth drummer join us, and I had my friend Ricky on bass, and we just kind of said, like, let's just do a load of blues stuff tonight. I was like, I just want to do a bunch of blues stuff, so we bust out like Stevie Ray Vaughan and Freddie King and different stuff like that. And John the drummer, like he was a different drummer to what I usually had, and he was like really into bluesy stuff, and it just kind of like worked. And we finished that, and I mean, those gigs were always just like a bit of a piss up, it was nothing serious, right, you know. And we'd had a great night, and we kind of all just like looked at each other and were like, we should do this, like, let's do this. And then I just started writing some songs, and Ricky, the bass player, he's like, I'm my best mate, and I'm godfather to his 2 kids, and he was kind of like a real important part in getting me started. He like really encouraged me and like really helped in the early days a lot. He was like, you know, you should do this. It was his idea to say, oh, call it the Kris Barras Band, like, let's make it like you know, and we did, and we got started. I don't know what happened. It was just one day. It was kind of around this time. It was kind of around Christmas period. Didn't have a lot on. I had like this little studio space that I used to rent, and I just remember sitting down there and I was just playing around with some riffs. I hadn't done that for like 10 years really, and I was like, oh, this riff's quite cool. And then I was just like, just enjoying like the bluesy stuff, playing that stuff again, and it just kind of took on its own life from there really.
Right, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about blues. What are the big blues influences for you?
I'm not really like a traditional guy. Like I'm not in my playing. I love it. Robert Johnson, Elmore James. Muddy Waters, BB, all the Kings.
Yeah, all the Kings, all three of them, mate. Yeah.
For me, like what first got me into it was Gary Moore.
Okay.
That was my first introduction.
I think a lot of people like that, aren't they? They sort of start off on that rock blues thing, and then they start digging and think, well, where did that come from? Where did that come from?
Yeah. Well, obviously, I was like 6-7 years old. What I listened to was what was in my dad's record collection, and he was a huge Gary Moore fan. I used to go through his vinyl. We had Stones, Deep Purple, Rainbow, Boston, and that's kind of what I grew up with. Those were the bands I liked. With Gary Moore, I remember my dad had a videotape, VHS. I can't remember what it was. It was Gary Moore, and he had Albert Collins play with him.
Right, nice.
And that was kind of like the first, and BB King. I'm not sure if they were on the same one. I might be getting confused. I was a kid, but that was the first time I'd seen these guys that like actually like do the proper blues. And then I had my dad had the Blues for Greenie album that he did.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And that was when I first heard these kind of guys. And back then, obviously, you didn't have the internet. It was quite limited. But when I was like, I don't know, maybe like just starting secondary school, so maybe I was like 11 years old, something like that, and I was allowed to go downtown on my own. I had my pocket money, and I used to buy a CD every week. I remember there was like a second-hand record store, and I found Stevie Ray Vaughan, Texas Flood, and that was kind of like my first discovery, like on my own.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've always liked the blues stuff, and I've always appreciated it. But like me as a player, I've been influenced by so many different people. So I was really into like classic rock, and every year I used to get one of those compilation albums on like cassette, which like best rock anthems ever. I'd get one it would normally be like a double cassette.
Yep.
And I'd spend the whole year like rewinding, play, rewind, like learning the licks. And that's kind of what I grew up with. Then once the internet became a thing, I was probably mid-teens, maybe early mid-teens, by the time we actually had a PC at home and we had the internet. The old dial-up broadband. Not broadband, just dial-up.
Just dial-up, yeah.
Horrible. Where like no one else in the house could use the phone.
Exactly,
You're on the internet.
I'm trying to get out of here.
Well, and then I started finding, like, I'd read like magazines and you'd hear names like, Joe Satriani's the best guitar player in the world, Steve Vai's the best guitar, and I was like, who are these guys? Like, I'd always thought Gary Moore was the best. And then I started listening to this and I was like, what are they doing? Like, I've never heard anything like this on a guitar before. And I kind of, when I was about 13, 14, I was pretty good. I was a pretty good guitar player in the rock blues genre. I could, play everything. I was pretty proficient, and I kind of thought I knew it all, because everything I could listen to I could play. There was nothing that I could listen to on any of those compilation tapes that I couldn't play. And then when I started hearing like Satriani and Vai, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, I can't play that. I don't even know what those sounds are. Like, where's that coming from? And I discovered those guys, and then Malmsteen, and then I got even deeper and got into some of the more like jazzy fusion guys like Greg Howe and Tony McAlpine and guys like that. And then I went even more like proper jazzy, Kenny Burrell and Wes Montgomery and Joe Pass, and started like really getting into those guys like my late teens. So I've really tried to have like an eclectic like mix. I've never been like an amazing jazzer. I did a couple of years I did quite a lot of jazz gigs, duo, trio, and like quartet stuff.
Right.
I was always a blagger. I'm not I'm
Yeah.
not a jazzer. I can blag, I can read music, I can read charts, and I know enough to be able to follow, you know, a chord chart with licks and it to sound like I kind of know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
but no like real finesse. But yeah, so all these kind of things have always have like shaped me.
Yeah.
You know, I've always liked guys that I don't feel this way about my playing. I'm not saying like me, but I've always liked guys that really like push the boundaries. You know,
Yeah.
like I said, the first time I heard Steve Vai and Satriani, I was just like, couldn't even.
What is this?
Yeah, couldn't even compute it. And you know, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it was like for me, it was kind of like it was a moment where I was like, oh, I'm not actually that good. Like, there's stuff out there that I just don't know how to play, you know, and I just hadn't been exposed to it. I didn't, you know, it's so much easier now. We've got everything at our fingertips.
yeah.
Everything's in our face. It's all on our little devices in our pocket.
Pocket computers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was different back then. It was just names that you'd read in a magazine, and you know, if you didn't go out and buy a CD, you know, 13, 14 years old, I didn't have loads of money. I couldn't just go and buy tons of CDs. You know, I could buy.
Yeah, I mean, you literally had to
second-hand
pick one
a
a week, didn't you? And it was like, you took a chance on that.
Yeah.
Never heard it before. Take
Yeah.
a chance on it. It's like, now you can just instantly download anything, you know, just by speaking the name, really, can't you?
Yeah.
It's a very different world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Coming right up to date now with what you're doing now, I mean, obviously, you know, you've sort of blown away the blues market completely. But, I mean, you've got so much more to your playing, don't you? How would you sort of categorise yourself musically these days?
You know, I don't want to like pigeonhole myself to anything. You know, I don't like being called a blues guy because I don't feel like I'm a blues guy.
Yeah.
I know blues guys, you know, real blues guys, and you know, I don't like that. There's definitely a large part of the blues community in the UK that have rallied behind me and like become great fans, and that's great. I love that, and there is the blues influence there. But you know, when people say, "Oh, blues guitarist Kris Barras," I always like cringe a little bit. I'm like, "Oh, I'm not," because I know,
Yeah.
you know, I play with Billy Gibbons. That's a blues guy. Like,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
that's a guy that lives and breathes it. And I you know, I almost feel like a bit of a fraud. You know, I'm like, I don't feel like I'm deserving of that. And you know, it's not necessarily like what I do, you know. It's such a more of a broad thing, but I just think people could categorise me however they want, you know. It's
Right,
music,
yeah.
you know. There's riffs,
There's
there's
two
solos.
types of music, right? There's good and there's bad. That's
Yeah.
it, really, isn't it?
So you know, I do see like, you know, my fan base, like people that come to see us and stuff, and it's quite a mix. I've got, you know, rock fans, you know, that maybe send us like support like Black Stone Cherry or anything like that,
Yeah.
you know, and they're like more like heavier rock fans, but they kind of latched onto what I do a little bit. Then there's blues fans that maybe like, you know, I think the die-hard blues people, they, you know, they wouldn't have ever liked what I do, you know. It's not, I can't see it appealing to them, but I mean, some of the more open-minded ones that are into the more rocky stuff too, they've definitely come along. And then I've got quite a lot of just like general guitar player fans,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
guys that just like guitar music, like they're players themselves, and you know, I get a lot of messages from guitar players and things like that. And so that's quite cool. I quite like that.
Do you ever you must always get the question, you know, I get this all the time. People come up to you and go, "Oh, my son's learning to play guitar. What do you think you should do? What's your advice for young guitar players?"
Yeah,
I always say, "Don't do it."
I always say to get a good teacher.
Right.
You know, I think I think the internet's great for learning and things like that, but I think for a child, that should like be like supplementary. You know, do your extra stuff, go onto YouTube or whatever else you do to learn. But I think, you know, a good teacher. I had a couple of really good teachers when I was younger. I had one guy. He ended up moving away, and I've never seen him since.
You were that bad, were you?
Scared him away. But I mean, he was great. I was like, you know, 9, 10 years old, and he had me like sight reading and just like fluently sight reading at that age.
Right.
And then he moved away, and then I just kind of stopped doing it, and I had to like relearn when I was doing GCSE music. I had to like really like knuckled down it, and I was better at reading music, because he was just such a good teacher. He got me doing it all, and like really structured. And yeah, he was called Gary. I don't remember his surname, but
Gary,
yeah,
if you're out there,
There's
get
a
in
Gary
touch,
out
eh?
there.
Get in touch.
But yeah, he was great. I had a couple of really good teachers who brought like different things, and that's the first thing I say to anyone: like, get a good teacher. It will make a difference. Someone that can put the structure in there, because guitar playing isn't easy. Yeah, it depends how good you want to get. If you just want to strum,
You make it look easy though. But it is, isn't it?
But yeah, that's the first thing I always say.
Don't forget, subscribe to the Blues Podcast. All right. So let's talk about guitars a little bit, because every time I see you on stage, you've always got something a bit tasty there playing. What's in the current guitar collection?
So at the moment, I've been playing Seth Backus guitar. So he's a custom builder down in Cornwall. He's based.
Right.
It's just one man operation. He builds them all by hand, and yes. So he's built me two now. So I've got it's not a normal guitar, but just a standard, guitar. And I've got a baritone as well, which is tuned to C, which is pretty cool. The normal guitar is it's his model, but I chose all the bits I want to have. It's called a Nautilus, and it's pretty cool. It's got a chambered body. So it's like hollow on the inside and flame maple top, swamp ash body. It's incredibly light, really, really cool. Mahogany neck with a ebony fingerboard. Benicle pickups. So yeah, it's a great, it's a work of art, it's a great bit of kit. And the baritone's really cool too. It's went a bit more basic on that one, so it hasn't got like the carved top or anything. It's sparkly silver.
Yeah, love it.
But I mean, that guitar is great. I mean, I'm sure you've probably have the same thing. But when you get like a new guitar, it kind of like inspires. Brings something out. And I've been writing loads of songs on that guitar, and I think it's going to be the sound of the next album, whenever that is.
Right.
Will be that guitar. I think it's definitely inspired me for a lot of stuff. It's weird though, because I've got my custom shop Telecaster as well, which I love dearly, and I've got a 1984 Strat that I've had since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
It's really hard because you can only play one at a time.
Exactly.
And I always feel like I'm like cheating, and I got of the past year I've been using a Gibson ES 335 as well, which is awesome. But yeah, it's just really hard. I always feel like, I don't know how Joe Bonamassa does it. Every week there's a new post of a new amazing guitar he's bought, and I just thought, I get anxious. So I miss playing my Telecaster, but if I play that, I miss playing my Backus, and it's just
I bet he can't even remember all the guitars he's got. He's like,
I reckon he probably could. I reckon he probably could.
Do you remember the very first guitar you got?
Yeah, it was just like I started, the very, very first one was just like an Argos Special.
Oh, nice.
Little 3/4 classical thing.
Yeah. Nine on strings, was it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And then I had to prove myself on that I was going to stick with it. And then I just got, like one of these, actually it wasn't a starter pack, it was just the guitar, because my dad had an old amp combo that he let me have. And it was an Encore Strat red. White scratch plate, and that's what I started off on, just a little Strat copy. And then I moved on to, he had it for himself actually. He bought it just on a whim. It was in the second-hand music shop that we used to have in town. It was a Hohner Revelation. It was quite a rare guitar. It had 27 frets.
Really?
Yeah, a really weird guitar.
Wow.
And he bought it. He liked the neck, and he actually gave that to me probably when I was about like 9 or 10. He let me have that. And that was my main guitar for quite a few years until I got a 7-string. I got a 7-string when I was 15. It was a Jackson Dinky. We had to special order it.
Right,
there wasn't many people that had 7-strings back then.
Yeah.
You're going back 20 years. Korn used to use them. Fear Factory, and I was quite into like metal-y stuff. Around that, like 14, 15, I had a bit of a metal phase.
Yeah.
And and my dad bought me one for my birthday, and he never had. My parents never had a pot to piss in. They weren't, they had to get it on finance, and it was amazing, really.
Do you still have those guitars now?
No,
you got rid of them.
Yeah, the 7-string just. Eventually, I ended up taking the 7th string off and using it as a 6th string.
Yeah.
Because
it's a bit weird, a 7-string, isn't it?
If that's what you do, if you're in corn or like these days, like see some of these crazy Instagram guys on like 8-string, but it's what they do with their instrumental stuff, and they use it all, and it's great. But if you're just playing covers in a bar, 7-string don't really work.
Right? Yeah. I always think it must be easier with more strings, surely. But to get that sound on like less strings is harder, isn't it? When you break a string at a gig and you have to carry on playing, that's harder.
Yeah, it's I think if you spend the time with it, it's like I used to play. I played bass every now. For a while, I was playing bass in a band, and I went from 4-string to 5-string. And at first, it was just like the string. It was just like a thumb rest.
Right. Yeah.
But then once I actually started using it and realizing the possibilities and how much easier it made things. If you was on a normal 4-string and you were playing up here, and then you'd have to come down here on a 5-string, just do that. It'd be the same on a 7-string guitar. But I'd never really spent the time with it.
Yeah.
I had a bit of like a metal-y band when I was like 14, 15, just a school band, and we used to, chug out like heavy, like new metal kind of stuff, and it was great for those kind of riffs. That's all I ever used it for. I didn't really get into it for like the lead playing and But.
Is there a guitar these days that you sort of aspire to? You think, that would be the absolute holy grail if I could get hold of that.
Yeah, I'd love to get something vintage, like a proper vintage Telecaster.
Right. Yeah.
I'd love to. I got a friend who's a guitar collector, and he's got I think it's a 56 Telecaster. I think it's 56. It's incredible. I can't remember the exact year. It's 50s. It's sometime in the 50s. Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but it's just like unbelievable. Like it's just so, and when you play it, like you can just, I don't know, it's just got so much character.
That worn-in feel, isn't it?
Yeah. I'd love to be able to afford to get something like that, like a nice collector piece, and not just. I don't want it. I want to play it.
Would you take it on the road?
Yeah, I don't know if. I'd like to. Yeah, I'd like to. I mean, it gets a bit tricky, doesn't it? Because with some like the older stuff, if you've got like an all original, you don't want to be like wearing the frets and anything like I was on tour in Italy last year with Supersonic Blues Machine, and we did this like clinic kind of thing. We played a little bit and we spoke loads with like Billy Gibbons and like a masterclass kind of thing at this really big, amazing music shop. I can't remember where in Italy it was or what it's called, but I mean it's probably the best music shop I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And they brought out a broadcaster, and it was like number 13 or number 14 like ever made. And I was like, how much is it? And they're like, there's no price. It came out of a vault, like underground. They brought it up, and I played that. The thing is, they got to put such light strings on, so you can't like wear the frets. And the frets were already like right the way down.
Wow.
I think I had 8-gauge strings on to save the frets because it was just, all original. They just didn't want it. So that's the tricky thing, I think. If you get something like a fifth, if you get something and you want it to increase in value and have it as like an investment, then I don't think playing it on the road is too wise. I mean, Joe does it, doesn't he? He plays his older stuff.
He's got an army of people to look after them.
Yeah.
With
Bernie
white gloves
plays
on
his,
and
doesn't he, as well?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Beast.
I mean the Beast. Yeah, it's still going strong, isn't it? But it's. I think. I mean, I'm in two minds as well. A guitar is sort of has to be played, doesn't it? But then again, you don't want to wear it out. So where do you draw that line? It's a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Difficult one. Oh, if anyone can help us out on this, write in to the Blues Podcast and let us know what to do, eh? Okay, let's change subject completely now. Let's, because you recently got married, didn't you?
Yep. Well, it was earlier this year.
Yeah, this year. So how's that working out for you?
Yeah, it's good.
Is it all right?
She's a diamond, yeah.
Mrs. Barras, how does she enjoy the music?
Yeah, I mean, she's not a musician herself. She's into like all sorts of music. We share some tastes, some we don't. But I think, yeah, she loves live music. She loves coming to watch me and going to festivals.
Does she come along on the road often with you, or
she doesn't really come on the road? She's got her own career, and
Right,
she's got a good job, and she's amazing at it. So no, she doesn't. She's flown out to like. We did a festival in Madrid this year, Supersonic. She flew out to that, and bits and bobs she'll come to. But yeah, it's quite hard to get the schedules to line up.
Yeah. And obviously you're being away from home quite a lot now as well at the moment. I mean, is that okay?
Yeah, it's tough.
The modern technology helps a little bit, right? But
it's tough. I think we both agree that it's actually like really healthy because we, the time apart, we kind of like really appreciate each other more. Like
Absence
when I'm back,
makes the heart grow
it's
fonder,
still hard.
right?
She gets a bit twitchy around the once it gets like 10 days, 2 weeks. She's kind of like, I want you to come home now. So if we're doing like a 3-4 week like stint, I'm not like that gets a little bit harder. But yeah, I mean, it's easy for me to say, but I think I prefer it. I mean, before I was a touring musician and I was working at the gym, we could go like 2 weeks without a night together,
right,
or we'd live in the same house, but I'd work like kind of like split shifts at the gym. So I'd do like PTs in the morning, do my like 1-to-1 sessions in the morning, finish around lunchtime, and then I'd be home, and then I'd go back down to teach like the public classes in the evening. Get home 9 o'clock, 9:30 or whatever it would be, go to bed because I've got to be back down the gym 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
So, we could go quite a long time without spending any time together. But then like now, I finished touring. I'm at home for 4 weeks it will be by the time January comes around. So I've got a month off where I'm at home and I can fit around. There's little bits, I'm up here. I had to come up here and talk to you.
Yeah, I know.
But little bits like that. But yeah, we get a lot more like actual quality time. I mean, we just last week or the week before, I think it was last week, we just went to Spain for 3 days.
Right.
She had a week off work and it was just like, booked in, and I was like, let's just go somewhere. And we just looked through the flights. It was Monday night. I looked what available flights we had on a Tuesday that had to come back on the Friday because I had a gig in France on the Saturday. And the only one that kind of tallied up was going to Malaga, so we went there for 3 days. We could do things like that, which if I worked at the gym, I wouldn't do because I've got classes, and when I was self-employed, you don't really. Well, I definitely didn't. I didn't ever take any holiday unless it was like we've booked to go on holiday.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have any time off. I'd never take a week off and just sit at home,
Yeah.
So we actually I think we get a lot more like quality time, It's tough. I miss her. I miss the dogs. But
Yeah. How does she get on with all the extra female admiration that you get on the road, like the bras and the underwear being thrown on stage and stuff, all this kind of thing?
I'm not sure there is much. I don't know. She doesn't make an issue of it. She's very supportive, and maybe inside there's something I don't know, but yeah, she's great. She's really supportive of it, and she's seen me. Obviously, when we got together, I was Kris Barras, the cage fighter, fight promoter, fight coach. So she's kind of seen it from the start, and she's proud. She's seen how hard I've worked, and she's seen it build up from, the very, very beginning.
Right, yeah, it's fantastic. You mentioned it a couple of times. Let's talk about the Supersonic Blues Machine.
Yeah.
Of course, you're working with those guys now. How did that come about in the first place?
Well, obviously we're on the same label.
Yeah.
And they, Lance Lopez, who's their frontman, had left the band. He wanted to concentrate on his solo stuff, and they were looking for a new front person. We didn't know this. It was all kind of, behind the scenes secret. It wasn't public knowledge. But they had a tour booked, and they were playing at Shepherd's Bush Empire.
Yeah.
And so my agent at the time was pushing for us to be the support act. Then it kind of all came out, it was like, well, we haven't actually got a front man. They've seen some videos. Guys from the label got involved, Major got involved, everyone kind of got involved and said, look, Kris could be the right guy. They saw some videos, they liked what they saw, and we had some phone conversations. I went out to LA, had a jam with them, met up with the Reverend himself, Billy G, and it's gone on from there. And
was it must be quite a high pressure gig going into that, surely?
Yeah, the first gig that we did at Shepherd's Bush Empire, it was like,
I think I was there actually.
Cool. Yeah. It's probably the most nervous I've ever been for a gig, but it was the nerve level that I had was the same as like when I'd had like title fights.
Right.
It was the same. I had that adrenaline, and it's like, I could like feel it all course. I can still remember it like backstage, and I was thinking, shit, I'm on in 15 minutes. Like, I was doing my vocal warm-ups, and I could just feel like adrenaline just surging through, like I was about to have a fight. It felt exactly the same as like my pre-fight routine, and I kind of applied the same mental things that I used to. I would always like tell myself, like, it's not nerves, it's your body just getting ready for battle. It knows you've got something big about to happen. It's just getting ready to help you through it and make sure that you're 100%. And I felt great as soon as I stepped out and we started the first song. It was like, it was just great, and I loved that gig. It's it'll go down in history as one of my best ever, I think.
Well, everyone was behind you, and thinking, come on, Kris.
Yeah, I think it was quite good that it was like in the UK. I mean, like most of the crowd probably didn't even have a clue who I was, but there were an element in there that knew of me through the Kris Barras band, and I could definitely feel that energy and that love there.
Right, yeah. What do you think the best thing is that you've taken away from the Supersonic Blues Machine? What's been the thing that's really
the money?
You've learnt the money. There's money in music. When did this happen?
All jokes aside, actually, like that band has been like a savior for me. The KBB's like a growing concern, and it's cost me a hell of a lot of money, and it's been really tough, and it's getting okay now. But the past 3-4 years have been like really, really tough. That band, because it's already established, obviously with Billy Gibbons in it, we're headlining huge festivals. The money's pretty good, and those one tour a year with them it was enough to mean that I didn't have to work full time anymore.
Right,
that could pay for me, that would cover my bills, and I hadn't got to worry, and I can just concentrate on the KBB. So it was actually a bit of a lifesaver for me. I was at a bit of a crossroads, so I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to carry on, because I wasn't home enough to be doing my job properly at the gym, and that was starting to become an issue, and it kind of came along at the right time, and so it was on the business side of things, it was that and raising my profile, but on like a personal level, personal development, playing with those kind of guys, it's mental, isn't it? It's just crazy. I never ever thought I'd ever, I used to play ZZ Top covers in pubs, and I'm playing ZZ Top songs with the man that wrote them. It's crazy. And Kenny on drums as well, such a like iconic drummer, and as a session guy, and hearing his stories and hearing how he's had to adapt to like the music industry, because it's changed a lot, and it's really interesting. And all those guys, it's a really like interesting gang to be part of.
Just talk about the music industry and how much it's changed. Do you think it's changing for the better, and are you kind of glad you've gotten at this point, or do you think the glory days were like back in the 70s?
It's really hard to say. I don't think I'm qualified enough to comment on that. In my experience, back what we were saying earlier, like I didn't know what to do when we didn't have the modern era, when we didn't have the internet, and I couldn't just record things myself into a poor standard, but an acceptable standard where I can send it to people and they can at least get an idea. I didn't have those like facilities, but in the modern era, like everyone does. It's easy to do. It's easy to put your music out, and I wouldn't have got anywhere without that. So I'm a product of the modern era.
Right,
you know,
yeah.
I made my own videos. I recorded myself. I put it out there. Blasted out emails, and and it's all things that I couldn't have done back when I was younger.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, what do I do? Well, move to London. I can't. Like, that's it. That was the only answer I could ever get. How do I make it in this industry? And obviously, like I said, I look back now and, I wasn't good enough. I could have moved to London. I wouldn't have done anything, But, so I'm a product of the modern era, I think. So, yeah. I mean, maybe not like the latest. Obviously, like now you've got people that are making a name on YouTube or whatever, or
that
TikTok or whatever the
big
latest
thing, right?
app is. So I'm not quite the latest, but the fact that you can record at home so easily and so cheaply, and you can put things on Spotify and iTunes and all this stuff, and music videos. If you spend a little bit of time, and you can do it with an iPhone. You spend a little bit of time, and
that's all you need, isn't it? Just a phone.
So,
and a guitar, maybe. But, yeah. So what? I mean, when was it the Kris Barras band actually kicked off? It was about 2015 when the first album came out.
Yeah. So it was Christmas 2014 that I started writing some tunes. I recorded the demo. It was like 2015. I can't remember the month. April or so, I don't know. Then the following year is when I did my first proper album. April 2016. That was the Lucky 13 album.
Right, yeah.
And that's when things really started moving. I spent a bit more time on the videos for that. The production was better. I brought a keyboard player in. I had a different drummer, and the keyboard player was much more skilled than me at production, things like that. So he helped with a lot of that. Yeah. I recorded everything in my own like little studio I had. Then he like mixed and did the finishing touches, and it made a big difference. And that for me was kind of like the album that people started like their ears started pricking up and going like.
I remember when I was at Team Rock, I got the album, and I thought this is really good. It's just slightly different from what everybody else is doing. I thought I really liked it as an album. I thought it was great. So. Yeah,
it definitely served its purpose. It got a few people to just like prick up their ears and start asking questions, and like, is this an American band, or all this kind of stuff. And obviously, I've got a bit of a different look to most people in like the UK blues scene, and all the tattoos and stuff. A lot of people are like, oh, you look like you should be doing heavy metal, and so it really that really got things moving. It got me into like a few different blues festivals, and that was my only goal. That was my only goal when I started the band. I just wanted to do a few gigs to people, to appreciative audiences, because I played in pubs, and spin a wheel in the summer, you'd have 500 people in that.
Yeah, right.
But it's 500 people that are there just getting pissed, and
they're not there.
They're only
music.
going mad because you're playing Superstition, Sweet Home Alabama. That's the only reason they're going mad. Not because of me.
Oh, I know this one. Oh, that's great.
Exactly.
You should be famous. You should be.
Exactly. Yeah. But I wanted, I wanted to sing my own songs and have people listen and really appreciate it. I remember I did my first ever gig of that kind of type of thing was it was a blues festival near Bournemouth. It was called Blues for Langside, and I remember when I got booked for that, and it was just off the back. I mean, that was before Lucky 13 actually. And it was off the back of a video that I put out on Facebook and was sharing it everywhere. And someone saw it and said, hey, do you want to play at this thing? And we went. I was so excited. It was my first ever proper thing. I think there was 65 people there, and I absolutely loved it because it was 65 people that were sat there watching.
Yeah.
And
they were
applauding.
there for the music, right?
I'd finish the guitar solo and then start clapping. I'm like, wasn't used to that, and then you'd come off and then they're buying CDs and. Yeah, it's like 60 people, 70 people, whatever, and that's all I ever wanted to do. That was my only ever goal. I just wanted to play to some people that wanted to listen. And this now,
you've smashed that now, right? I mean, so where'd you go from now then? What's next?
Yeah, the goalposts keep moving.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just want to keep pushing and keep trying to get into the bigger festivals, get to the bigger venues, and just keep growing the fan base. That's all I want to do. You know, it's I'm just gonna keep working hard and doing
Keep
things.
plugging away, eh?
Yeah,
keep plugging away. I've got a question that I'm going to ask to everybody who comes on the Blues podcast now, and I want you to think about it's the last day of the world, and despite all that, forget all that, but you've been booked for a gig that you've got to go and play. Now, who would you get to play in that band, and what would be your opening number?
God. Dead or alive?
Well, I think it's the last day of the earth. I think
It has to be people that are still alive now.
maybe you can have some holograms, like, you know, because it's slightly in the future. So, you know, it's.
God, I don't know. It's a tricky one. I have no idea.
I've stumped him.
You stumped me. I don't know. I don't know. I love playing with the guys in my band now, you know. I don't know back in time, you know, obviously I'd love to have played with Gary Moore.
Right,
I'd love to have played with Hendrix. That was always one.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. What song? I'd want to play one of my own, you know, because I get so much more satisfaction out of that. Even though
and the royalties, of course.
Even though we won't get it because the world's ended.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
PRS are not that quick.
Yeah, no, they're not that quick, are they? No.
You know, I get so much more enjoyment. You know, whilst there's tons of better songs out there, I'd get more enjoyment playing my own stuff. So I'll go with Hail Mary, and I'll go with my own band. Maybe with a special guest. Who should we have special guest? I don't know. Let's just have it. It's my own band. My own band playing Hail Mary.
Pretty good, eh? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's...
If I could have dead people, I'll have Hendrix and Gary Moore up there with me.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be nice. Kris, it's been absolutely awesome talking to you, man.
Cheers,
Thank you so much for coming on the Blues podcast and having a chat. Got one more. We've got one more special question for you.
Oh, right.
Joe Bonamassa. In a fight, who would win between you and him?
Oh, it'd be close, but I reckon I could just pip it.
You reckon?
Guitar battle, maybe not, but if it's
you
good old-fashioned fisty
Joe,
cuts,
look at that 1958 Les Paul. Bang! He'd be, what?
I reckon I could probably take him.
There you go, Joe. Let's set this up, shall we?
Probably not in a guitar battle, but good old-fashioned fisticuffs, I reckon I'd win that one.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.